For your viewing pleasure, this broadcast of the Municipal Council meeting of Alpena is made possible by the funding provided by the City of Alpena. Thank you for your generosity.
Good evening. Welcome to the Alpena City Council meeting of June 17th, 2013. Call the order, please.
Eiler.
Here.
Nielsen. Here. Nowak.
Here.
Sexton.
Here.
Walagora.
Here. Stand for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Everyone had an opportunity to look over the minutes of regular session June 3rd and closed session June 3rd. Everything is fine. We'll receive and file. Any modifications to the agenda this evening? I think Greg has one.
Yes, under 11, communications and petitions, I'd like to add 11B, a presentation by Rick Duell of NEMCOG of the Thunder Bay Riverscape Plan. We missed getting that on, but it is a requirement of the grant, and it has to be done this month because the grant expires at the end of the month.
Someone wants to move on that?
So moved.
Second.
Nielsen.
Yes.
Nowak.
Yes.
Sexton.
Yes.
Walagora.
Aye.
Eiler.
Yes.
And I don't have my hard copy, so if I get that far and I skip over it, just say, hey, there's another thing. Citizens appearing before City Council on agenda and non-agenda items are allowed a maximum of 5 minutes to address their concerns. This is the only time during the council meeting that citizens are allowed to address council. If you would like to do so, please come to the podium and state your name and address for our records. Okay, no announcements this evening. The consent agenda, bills to be allowed. B is Do Life Ministries noise variance request from 10 p.m. to 11:30 p.m. on July 5th at the Alpena Band Shell for a family movie night. And C is a budget amendment of $20,000 to pay wired city project costs in the IT department.
May we accept the consent agenda as presented?
Second.
Nowak.
Yes.
Sexton.
Yes.
Walagora.
Aye.
Eiler.
Yes.
Nielsen.
Yes.
Okay, and this evening I have a proclamation. Whereas the Alpena Blues Coalition was started in November 2003 for the purpose of furthering blues music awareness and appreciation, and whereas the first Alpena Blues Festival was held in 2004 and subsequent successful festivals have been held each year since, and whereas the Blues Coalition provides a program called Blues in the Schools Music Outreach as a way of raising awareness and educating children and adults in traditional American blues music. And whereas events sponsored in the past include blues bands at the Friday Night Downtown concert series, blues performers at various venues around town, financial support of Vietnam Vets of America, and fighting hunger in our community. And whereas over the years, successful band fundraisers have been held to support and promote awareness of upcoming Alpena Blues festivals held every June at the Alpena County Fairgrounds. This year's festival will be held June 21st and June 22nd, 2013. Now, therefore, I, Matthew J. Walagora, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Alpena, do hereby proclaim the week of June 16th through the 22nd, 2013 as Alpena Blues Week in Alpena, and urge all citizens to recognize the support the efforts of the Alpena Blues Coalition's 10th Anniversary Blues Festival. Signed today. And I think Randy is here. Randy, you want to come up? And you guys want to get a photo op or anything? Appreciate everything you do. All right.
Do I get to stand up there too?
I'll stay there. You can catch it. All right, thank you. You want to take that with you? Thank you. Thanks. Okay, no public hearing this evening. Report of officers, we have bids on Lake Street reconstruction. Rich?
On June 11th, excuse me. On June 11th, the city received an open bids for the Lake Street reconstruction project. This project is for complete utility replacement, sewer and water, and street reconstruction on Lake Street from Merchant Street to Pine Street. Bid documents were posted on the city's website, and notice of the project was sent to various contractors. 3 bids for the projects were received as follows. MacArthur Construction out of Hillman, $268,431. Bedrock Contracting out of Alpena, $317,045.05. And Team Elmers out of Hillman for $340,779.50. It is my recommendation as city engineer that the project be awarded to MacArthur Construction with the as-bid cost of $268,431. Funds for the project were included in the sewer and water funds as listed in the memo. Jerry MacArthur, he has done a number of projects for us, most recent one being the downtown parking lot, but he's also done a number of sewer and water projects. And we have been very pleased with his work quality in that way. So, we were really surprised by the price that was quoted on this project. Engineer's estimate on it was $390,000. But we went through the numbers. Basically, the big thing is the contractor has worked on both ends of the project. He did the original block of Merchant Street, or of Lake Street from 2nd to Merchant, and he's worked on the other end up near the high school, or near the Lincoln Elementary, so he's familiar with the ground conditions, and I think that's what resulted in the low prices.
Yeah, because I had a question, 15% lower than the next closest bid, and I'm like, yeah, we worked with these guys before, but you answered that. My other question was, is that when we have a project like this is pursued, are we doing our own inspections on that? Are we contracting out the inspections of, to make sure that the project is?
We do our own inspections. That has, over the last few years with budget cuts, we've cut two staff members out of the engineering department. They were basically our full-time inspection staff. They're not getting the full-time 100% inspection that they should have, but with the contractors that we have, we feel confident. We can spot check them. I mean, it doesn't mean that we don't do an adequate job. We ensure that they build what we are requiring them to build, but we don't have time to be out there 100% of the time. And on some bigger projects, we may have to contract because we don't have the staff time to commit to it.
Is it just the staff time or the guideline that you use in, or is it the size of the project when you would actually contract somebody in?
Size of the project and the funding agency. As an example, next year we've got a Michigan Department of Transportation project. Paperwork, inspection time, documentation is something that we could do, but absolutely nothing else would get done. I mean, that's.
Thanks.
Rich, so you allowed $390,000 for the project, right? So if we would have went with Bedrock, we still would have had savings compared to what we thought we were going to spend, correct? You know what I'm gonna say next, right?
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's below, but they're not, they don't fall within the local bidder's preference, you know, et cetera. And Bedrock is actually, their office is located outside of the city, so they would be in the same category as private construction.
Oh, even though it says Alpena.
Yeah, their mailing address is Alpena, their office is on Hamilton Road outside of the city.
Okay.
The other thing it does is, especially the water fund, but both funds are very tight in terms of money for the capital. And so if we can save and put that in to maintain an adequate reserve, this is very good news for us. The fact that we're able to put those additional dollars back in to keep for reserve. So if unexpected things, as we had during the winter, where various breaks and other things come up, that, you know, there's additional money if we have to do major work such as we did on Lockwood Street over the winter, and we still have to go back in there and finish that up. This all helps. So for us, we see this as good, that we're that much below and are able to put that money back into those two funds.
Kind of on that topic too, not Lockwood, but Ripley, I've got that question on. Is that on the schedule? Do we have like a date?
What we've got to do, and it's just, it's been the permitted, we have to get permit applications into them. We've talked to the DEQ folks, it's just, I mean, very simplistic permit. We don't have to go through the full detail like we did for Lake Street. But it is something we hope to get in and get it patched. I'm hoping by the end of this month yet.
Anything else on the bid? Any other questions? Take some action.
I move we approve the bid of MacArthur Construction for the Lake Street reconstruction project as the as bid amount $268,431.
Ms. Sexton?
Yes.
Walagora?
Aye.
Tyler?
Yes.
Nielsen?
Yes.
Novak?
Yes. Okay, and then we've got bids for the City Hall copier.
On Tuesday, May 28th, the County of Alpena received and opened bids for copiers for both the County of Alpena and City Hall. A total of 13 copiers, 12 for the county and 1 for the city, were proposed, with the following 3 bids received for the City Hall copier. Miller Office Machines came in at $11,985.41. Michigan Office came in at $17,210, and Applied Imaging came in at $37,395. We requested that the bidders provide an option to purchase the copier outright with monthly maintenance fees, or provide a monthly lease rate plus the maintenance fees. After consideration of the budget, it is more cost effective to purchase the copier outright and pay the maintenance fees for the life of the copier. The bid also includes removal of the old copier, installation, setup, and training on the new copier. Miller Office Machines LLC was the low bidder, and although their maintenance costs per copy are slightly higher than both of the other bidders, when calculated over the expected life of the copier, they are still the low bidder, as referenced by the attached spreadsheet. We have not had any prior experience with Miller Office Machines. Therefore, both Brad McRoberts and I contacted the references. Everyone we contacted was very happy with the company, their service, and the Konica machines that they sell. Of specific interest were the comments praising them for quick response time and the fact that they mostly do preventative maintenance and have not been really called to service the copier for machine issues. After reviewing the bids with Alpena County IT and considering the comments from the references, I'm recommending as IT coordinator that the City Council award the bid for the City Hall copier to Miller Office Machines LLC in the amount of $11,985.41 and approve the cost per copy for maintenance. There's currently $15,000 budgeted for the City Hall copy.
I have a couple questions, Steve.
Okay.
Does this copier, I'm assuming, does it have scan capabilities, and does it hook into the network and can act as a backup printer and such?
Right. It's much more than a copier. We call it a copier because that's what it mainly functions as. But it's a color copier. It can scan to PDF. We can scan to email. You can go up to the machine and scan to a folder. So when you go back to your desk, you can open that up, find it there. It will add faxing from the desktop, which we don't have now. So you'll be able to, have a document fax it right from your desktop out to out to somebody without going to the fax machine. We'll be able to receive faxes on it. It's, you know, it's got all the bells and whistles as it says, so it's a pretty nice copy. I'm very happy with it. The speeds are above what we're experiencing now for, you know, time for each copy, and I'm looking forward to having it installed, because the one we have now is ending its useful life. When it breaks, it really breaks.
How long do they usually have? I'm just curious on that. What's the average?
Talking with Brad and the numbers we used, we looked at about 5 years. I fully expect it to last longer than that. I don't know if that's the experience, but I think the one we've got now is 9 or 10.
Okay.
So.
Are we behind the county, or are we ahead of them as far as approving it? We're ahead of the county as far as approving the,
Yeah, Brad's,
you anticipate?
Brad's taking it tomorrow.
Okay, with the same report that you have?
Right.
Copier prices don't freak me out like they used to, because we've gotten a couple at work, and I know that they're expensive.
To put
But
things into perspective, which I can't believe, the copier we bought that's lasted this was $35,000. And now we're buying one for,
Wow.
you know, just under 12. So I'm ecstatic.
with, great.
Yeah.
Susan, you had something, or
No, I believe it.
Sam, you also?
Good.
Okay.
Need a motion?
I believe so.
Well, after that sterling report, I move that we award the copier contract to Miller Office Machines at the stated bid of $11,985 and change.
Walagora.
Aye.
Tyler.
Yes.
Nielsen.
Yes.
Nowak.
Yes.
Sexton.
No.
Thank you, Steve.
And we have one more for the per page prices. It would be to buy the copier and then the per page prices.
Oh.
Yeah, for the maintenance.
Yeah, maintenance costs.
Oh,
You,
I thought something included. No.
Yeah, he said something about it.
Sorry about that.
that's all right. You have to add the.
I got the price, but I didn't have the second. I guess I didn't get the price. All right, let me pluck that back out of my file. And that we also award the bid to Miller Office Machines for the maintenance cost, right?
Because I do believe they're separate. Are they separate
The
contracts?
total being
they are. separate.
$23,289.
Do you want that as a separate motion, Steve? You-
Yeah. it
Okay,
should be, yeah, 'cause
okay.
There'll be two separate contracts that we'll sign.
Okay, all right. You're in a second, okay. Okay, all right. Eiler.
Yes.
Nielsen.
Yes.
Nowak.
Yes.
Sexton.
Yes.
Walagora.
Aye. Communications and petitions, we have Larry Clark for an update on taking pride in Alpena, the South Corridor cleanup. Larry?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank Greg and the rest of the board for allowing us to come in and give you give you an update on our efforts on 23 South. First of all, we'd like to talk about the results that we've had to date, the goals we have for the remainder of the year, and also an idea that we have that we'd like your input and possible support on. I'm going to need a copier myself.
Yeah, he's sitting right back there.
Thank you.
Wisdom.
Thank you.
Gary's going to start off with a recap of some of our results so far this year we're pretty excited about.
Hi, I'm Gary Parakeeta. I'm glad to be here. I want to thank you for the support that we've been receiving. Taking pride in South Corridor started basically, I think last August 28th. That was our first actual meeting. And if anybody has driven down 23 lately, it's evident that things are changing on things. Even though between the bike path and the curb, even though it's in a lot of areas it seems to be mainly weeds, they're being cut down. We have two maintenance companies that volunteered to keep the weeds cut down and the grass. So just that's a large. It's really a big improvement. You probably noticed the flower pots. There are over 40 flower pots. Now additional people are starting to plant alongside the curb. We've had two cleanup days. May 16th, we did the east side from Feral Gas to the city limits, and that was really bad. We removed tons of dirt in there. We had 3 tractors, a small dump truck that was donated, and a dump trailer, plus many bags of garbage. We're having a lot of other people step forward that want to be involved and want to help. The Habitat is going to be helping. We're looking to paint at least a couple houses, or even possibly some businesses out of that into town. The Girls and Boys Clubs they're going to be involved. They're going to be painting some of the signposts and stuff that are all rusted. And we've just received notice that the Rotary Club wants to join in. And these are all just volunteers. This I found really interesting. Like I said before, this started by 2 guys picking up garbage when we were walking for coffee break. There's something going on. Last year, every day that we walked, we picked up at least a Neiman's bag full of garbage. This year, that's happened only twice. Most of the time, it's a half a bag or less. So people are noticing. They're not throwing the trash out that we were finding. Maybe other people are out there picking some of it up now. So things are happening here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Gary. Gary's just done a wonderful job working with businesses and homeowners and getting all of us motivated of all the myriad of details that's involved in doing a big cleanup project like that. And he's really been just amazing to have on the group. A couple of other things we've done so far. We're working actively with the township regarding the blight and dangerous building ordinances. At the last township meeting, 3 trustees did agree to meet with me and to sit down and have an honest talk about blight and what are some of the creative solutions that we might be able to do to really to tackle this blight issue at little or no additional cost to the township. And I'm going to be getting into that in a minute here, and I'd like to get your input on that as well. As mentioned last time, we've really now totally combined our efforts with the businesses on 23 South. They are helping us and we're helping them. Betty Westrup has been our kind of our communications person. She writes most of our e-letters and communicates with the media. And on the topic of the media has just been wonderful in covering some of the things that we're doing. Steve wrote a great article in the paper, a full-page article many of you may have seen about the first cleanup day. If you care to, please get on Facebook, which we're all on Facebook now, right, to see what our kids are doing, and take a look at Taking Pride in Alpena, South Quarter. We do have a page there. Regarding a business association, we have met twice now at the mall. A couple of you were present. And definitely is the energy behind forming a South Quarter Business Association of some sort. The respondents that attended these meetings indicated that reduction of blight and improving the economic vitality of the area was a primary concern. So we have the energy there, not only with some of our citizens and so forth that are doing the cleanup, which also have a number of businesses involved actually handling the shovels too. And we need to keep in mind that according to the recent county survey that was co-authored by NIMCOG, 74% of the respondents indicated they left town to go shopping at least 1 or 2 times per month. Now that's a lot of revenue that's going outside of our area. So what can we do as a group to try to keep both people coming into Alpena and to keeping our citizens here? The other thing I wanted to mention, of course, going forward here, the second part of what we'd like to cover is our goals for the rest of the year. We're still working with the township on grants, and namely the Community Development Block Grant and Brownfields. We're, as a business association, we're looking for a way to get a 501c status. So when that's really kind of the holdup right now. So when we apply for grants, we'll have a place to deposit those monies, along with some fundraisers. We've talked about doing some bowling between various businesses on the south corner to generate money for cleanup efforts and things like that as well. And Gary told you about the cleanup programs that are starting here this summer. Possibly by the end of the week or the beginning of next week, we'll have paint crews out on 23 South. So that's pretty exciting. Moving on, the question I have of you is it time for all of us as government officials to sit down and take an honest look at blight throughout the township, throughout the city, throughout the whole area, and really think, what can we do to try to address this issue? Blight really affects all of us, of course, because it decreases our property values. It makes it more challenging, I believe, for businesses that take a look at our area, to want to relocate here, for employees and managers want to relocate here as well. So we really all have a stake in this. And can we just sit down and be collectively, not worry about how it got started or some of our past maybe efforts in not getting it done, but take a fresh look at it. And some of the things I have for you to consider, if you move on to the third page. A couple of our townships have tried some things that have been successful for them. Sanborn and Ozanique Township, for example. If you move on up to the fourth page, you'll see a little bit of detail there. They both have a dedicated person that is responsible for blight violations. And I won't bore you with all the details necessarily, but a dedicated person that's focused on blight, of course, has the time, knows the blight ordinances, and most likely will respond to complaints and such by knocking on a door, asking the homeowner to clean it up, possibly then going back, maybe 7 days later or something, and putting a placard on the door or some kind of a citation that if it's not addressed after that, there will be a fine involved. And you know what? Most people clean up their property right away. Very seldom do they ever need to get their lawyers involved. In Sanborn Township, only 4 times in the past year. And a similar program exists in Ozanique Township with Randy Fairbanks. I talked to him at length about this, and he's only had to write 2 or 3 citations in his township. Most people, after the verbals, go ahead and clean it up. Now, Don, talked to Don quite a bit. He's probably tired of me being in his office, but he may be aware of what the city is doing to try to discourage blight. But one of the things they do is, are you all aware of the placards that the building inspector uses? Okay. And according to what Don has told me, you know, 95% plus of people that once they get this placard on their homes go ahead and take care of the issue. Now I'd like to leave you with some thoughts also about what other municipalities in Michigan are doing about blight. And one of the things that really popped up for me when I was doing a search on this was the city of Warren. Granted, Warren is a fairly large city, but it all started with a mayor and some council members that recognized that blight leads to more crime and reduces property values, which decreases revenue and creates a cyclical pattern that starts to bring down the community. And I won't go through this, but I think you'll, between what this article here in front has to say about what the neighborhood did to address this situation. It was a very nice article as well in the Detroit Free Press about their successes. And there again, through the use of placards and diligence on the part of the officials in the community, they were able to significantly reduce blight. The last time I was here, I was telling you about the city of Oakland, and they also, Oakland, California, and what they did. So it seems like when you get the energy and commitment, and a community starts to know that you are going to be serious about blight and blight violations, that most of the work is done by the people then. And I think if you get a few nice properties, it's amazing how that starts to feed on itself. It's like, you know, look at my place. I guess I could do a few things. And we're starting to see that already on 23 South as well. Yeah, what do you think about an idea of forming some kind of coalition or officials from the city and the county and the township sit down and actually have a discussion about blight and what we can do to remedy that? I mean, the intergovernmental meeting might be one possibility, but.
The intergovernmental meeting is one thing. I think it would be maybe more conducive to action if we sat down at some point as a starter to kind of see where we're currently at, see what the issues are, and then kind of go from there as a small committee of just possibly myself and Marie and our township supervisor Don, Greg, just to kind of take a look at what we have that are similar, what we have that are that one governmental unit has that the other can maybe copy off of, and kind of start there. Intergovernmental, we do a lot of discussing and presentations, but not quite so much in the action part, if you will. So you know, I'd be completely open to that. You know, I'm a big supporter of what you guys have done. Gone to a couple of your meetings. You know, like Jim Claridge told us at our last intergovernmental meeting, that shouldn't be. I don't think anybody can really argue with, is that when you're a stranger and you're coming into Alpena, you're not looking for that little sign that says City of Alpena. When you enter Alpena, we should be, as a city government, just as interested in what you're doing as the township and the county and the rest of the community is. I think, and that's certainly how I feel. So I think it might be a good starting point to see where we're at. Give me an opportunity to take a look at some of these documents you've given, and I'm open to sitting down and just kind of going over a few things. If Greg open up a little bit of time possibly, and just kind of go from there.
Well, if it's okay with you guys, I'll follow up with you sometime after the 4th.
Why don't you do that? And then, you know, and if we sit down and if we already have a committee, because we have several committees that we function with, and if it looks like it's taken a direction that we already have a committee for, then we'll just kind of drop back and give that to whatever committee it is, go from there.
Okay.
If that sounds reasonable.
Yeah, that's very good. Thank you. Thank you. And I want to thank those of you who come to our meetings, and please, you're all very welcome. We'd love to have you at our general meetings and our cleanups and so forth. And we'll be announcing our next general meeting will probably be after the 4th. So, thank you again.
All right.
If anybody wants, you got our email list. Matt knows how to get a hold of us, and we can link on our newsletter. We're well over 130 people that we're emailing to. So, thank you.
I think it's great. Thanks.
Guys.
Okay, and then next up is Rick Duell from NEDCOG. Oh, duck behind them.
He was there a minute ago.
He was there a second ago. Riverscape, is that the?
Yes,
official
Thunder
title?
Bay
Thunder Bay
Riverscape plan.
All right. Yeah, I've got just a few slides I wanted to show you as part of the plan. I was told not to go overboard on flora and fauna, so I cut out a whole bunch of slides on plant taxonomy and all that stuff. So anyhow, the plan was funded by a grant from the Coastal Management Program, Michigan Coastal Management Program. And then the required match has been done by in-kind support from the city staff and also from the volunteers that have been involved on the committee in putting the plan together. This shows the planning area. It focuses from the riverbanks from 9th Street Dam, which I found out in this process, it's not the 9th Avenue Dam, it's the 9th Street Dam, the official name of it. But, and then down to the mouth. And what we did is we stepped back about one street to parallel the river so we could catch some of the parks and some of the land areas. One of the first things we did was to look at, at past projects, and I got to tell you, I come over to Alpena a lot, but I've never had the opportunity just to get out and spend some time walking around your riverfront, and I was just really impressed with the work that the city's done, especially over the last, over the last decade, the work that you've done to kind of reconnect the community to the riverfront. Especially on some of those old industrial sites. And I was also really amazed at all the people I saw out there using the trails, whether they were walking or biking or just sitting and enjoying it. So what a great asset that you've really added to the city. And it's really been, with the city staff and some of these public-private partnerships, the strong community support, and then federal and state grants, and then volunteers and donations that have really made it happen so far. So I guess kudos to the community for the work that they've done. Now just to say about the plan is really a guide for the landowners and communities. It's not a regulation. There's nothing requiring anybody to do it, but at least it provides a really good guide. So as work continues on the riverfront, be it city-owned property or private landowners, there'll be a guide that can be used to make sure that, as continued work is done, that it can kind of fit into some of the concepts that we have developed as part of this plan. And it really respects and embraces the fact that you've got a nice mixed waterfront, a working waterfront, the industrial, the mixed uses, and along with all the great recreational features. So that's really important, and I think of it from a standpoint of maybe people out kayaking and the fact that they can kayak around and kind of see these mixed uses. Some people like to come and just look at industries, So I think it really adds, really has some nice features. And then the plan will be used to access a funding in the future as improvements are made on the river. Essentially, we have these 4 elements. We established an oversight committee. And on that committee, we had landowners, we had different organizations, planning commission, we had volunteers on that committee. We met several times and they helped guide the process. We conducted an inventory of the existing conditions, looking at the stream banks and some of the work that's been done. And then, of course, developing the plan. We also had opportunities for community outreach. Once we had a plan drafted, we invited landowners on the riverfront to come in, and then also a general meeting with the public. And I do want to point out 2 of the people that were on our committee went out on their own, Barbara Meek and Elizabeth Littler, and walked it and did their own inventory and took a lot of pictures. They really put a lot of time into it so they could get an understanding of it and really provided some information that we were able to use for the project itself. So we've got some great volunteers in the community, and I'm not telling you any secret because you already know that, but they really helped out. So the overall goal of the plan was to improve the physical, the visual, and ecological connections to the Thunder Bay River. All of those still need some tweaking, which was really the intent of this plan. We have oops, I should jump one more. Okay. As I did the inventory, there's a real mix of plants, particularly when I looked a lot at the north side in front of NOAA. There's a mix, what I say, good plants and bad plants. Quite a bit of just volunteer plants that have come in on their own, native plants, such as the one in the upper left is black elderberry, and then the white berries are dogwood. There's high bush cranberry. There's really a lot of good plants, but intermixed with those good plants are some of the rough plants. And when we look at that side that NOAA's on, those riverbanks that haven't been worked on, there's really some, I think the major culprit there is box elder. Work's done to cut it down, but box elder sprouts back up. So you cut it down, it comes back up, and that's really hampering the view. And it's also kind of strangling out some of the good vegetation, the good shrubs and trees, native shrubs that have kind of worked their way in there. So we really wanted to look at that, what can be done to improve those views and get some of those invasive plants out of the river corridor. This slide just shows kind of a before and after of the treatment. In order for people to be able to see the river when they're at NOAA, that vegetation grows back up, and it's a pretty harsh cutting process to just knock it back down. Keeps it down for a year or two, but then the box elder sprouts back up. But in the meantime, it looks pretty rough when it's cut down. And part of this plan is to look at those undesirable plants and invasive plants and get those out of there. So when we look at making treatments, particularly on this bank here, the kind of treatment that we're recommending isn't a brush hog, because there's good plants mixed in with the bad plants. So in these steep banks here, we look at doing kind of a two-stage treatment. First of all, to go in and cut down the box elder and treat the stump so it doesn't sprout back up. Don't want to take the stumps out because those root systems are going to hold the bank in place until some other vegetation gets established. So first getting the box elder out of there, doing some stabilization with some low plantings, and then kind of taking a look to see what's going to come up in some of those native plants that are there to see how they're going to fill in. And then the second phase on these steep banks would be to go in and do some interplanting of the more desirable shrubs. What we've done as part of the plan, this is a short list, but we put together kind of a long list of native plants and have them categorized by heights, because when you're planting on a steep bank like that, you don't want to put the 20-foot shrub on the top and the 2-foot shrub on the bottom. So that as this is being implemented, to have a list of plants to go with. We're also focusing, on native plants. It really will improve the, the visual quality and add color and textures. Also, the benefit of improving wildlife habitat by providing some food and cover for wildlife. In the use of native plants, generally they don't have the same problems with insect and diseases. At least the common types of bugs that we have around here. Nothing's to say that when we have something like ash borer come in, some non-native plant, but at least by using native plants, there's less of a problem with insect and disease. And a lot of these plants, they provide food for wildlife, but along with that, they're also flowering. If you have something like elderberry or serviceberry, you get the nice flowers, and then you have the fruit afterwards. So it's providing food for wildlife. And also, when you have somebody like me that likes to go out and harvest some wild foods, a lot of those different wildlife plants and the berries can be harvested and used for jams and other types of things. So I think it adds some of the nature back into the city, but also provides some opportunities for nature study and some outdoor education. I'm not sure how well these are going to show up, but what I want to show is just some of the concepts we have of doing some of the additional plantings. For example, this is in front of DPI. The upper left one shows what it looks like now. The one on the lower right then shows with some interplanting of different shrubs and trees, how that will fill in, provide some cover for wildlife, kind of soften up some of that harder edge of the industry, but not the intention of completely blocking it off so people can't see the industry, but kind of softening the edge and improving the habitat for wildlife. I know when we talked with a representative from DPI, there's always some issues that have to be worked out, and there's kind of a security, safety issue, so some of those things still would have to be worked out. There was also some discussion about wouldn't it be nice at some point to have a foot trail that went out to the little red light, and that would be another thing you'd have to work with DPI and see if you can get around some of these, the security and safety issues. Looking off the riverfront itself, we've suggested some additional plantings, both in some of the city parks and here on the Alpena Mark property, doing some what I call permaculture plantings of different shrubs and trees, and then also a planting of a screen along the old railroad corridor. And the kind of stuff that we're suggesting, instead of having a nice neat row of trees evenly spaced that are all one species, doing kind of a mix of different plantings, of having some hardwoods and conifers, some taller trees and shorter trees and shrubs, kind of make it a multi-tiered planting with a mix of different species, so it, you know, adds some diversity. Also sets it up so if something like an emerald ash borer comes in, it doesn't kill every tree you have planted there because you have a mix of different shrubs and trees, and also creates a little bit of what you're going to find out in the wild, out in nature, where there's a mix of plants and trees. This, you can't see it very well, but I don't know where my mouse is, but you know, but what I did is just showed, you know, along the south side, there's some stretches there where it's been all cleared and it's kind of wide open, and our suggestion is we don't want to block that off because people like the views, but to do some little selective plantings of different wildlife shrubs and trees in small clumps to kind of break up that open area, provide a little bit of screening, and also improve wildlife habitat. This shows on the south side here. On the upper left, again, is what it currently looks like, that steep slope. We looked at some plantings there, of doing kind of clump plantings again. You can see on this bottom slide here of what it would look like putting in wildlife shrubs and trees here, and then along that slope having these clump plantings that would kind of be like this, where you have a mix, again, of plants of different sizes, not completely blocking off that hill, but providing a little bit of break in that hill, and also reducing some of the challenges of trying to mow that area. Some of the discussions were with the committee about the benches where people can sit, but it tends to be pretty open and sunny, you know, and this just kind of shows you, here's what it currently looks like, and by planting, you know, a couple of larger trees, or trees that would eventually get larger, that would, again, provide some cover and a little bit of shade for people, but not blocking the view. This, again, shows the park, North Side Park. I'm getting all my parks mixed up. This is what it currently looks like, and this then shows at the bottom of having some additional plantings in there, again, that would provide some shade and break up the park a little bit. One of the challenges that I found is the people wanting to get down to the water, and surprisingly enough, even though you have some great views of the water, there aren't really any good places where people can easily walk down and touch the water. Especially if it's somebody who maybe isn't from the area, a visitor that's coming, they're not willing, like I would be, or you might be, to just bushwhack, you know, go through the brush and climb down a steep hill to try and see the water. So there surely are some opportunities there to make that connection more than just a visual connection. They have a physical connection, so people can go down and sit by the river and fish by the river, just sit and enjoy and watch the, you know, the leaves float down the river in the fall. There's a lot of little goat paths running down, especially on the bank, on the side where Noah is. And when you get down that bank, the one thing I found is there's some old, you know, wooden stuff from the old industrial days, and we're not suggesting taking that out, but what I found on a rainy day, it's pretty darn dangerous to be walking down there where that wood is. So we want to be able to have it, so to encourage people to get down, but to go down to the right place and not to have these goat paths where it's causing erosion or where somebody could maybe be hurt. I know the city submitted a grant with NOAA to the Coastal Zone Management Program to construct this little amphitheater right in front of NOAA. I don't know if have you all seen this before? Okay. You know, and that's just really perfect, because what it'll allow is when people come to NOAA, they can actually walk down, see the river. It also includes a kayak launch there, which is one of the things that we thought was really key and needed in here because of that real strong interest and growing interest in kayaking. But then there's some other spots. This is, you know, as you walk across the pedestrian bridge onto Island Mill Park, and if you look closely here, you can see paths where people are wanting to get down to the river to fish, but it's pretty rough going once you get down there because of the riprap. It's not easy to walk around, and the fact that you're going to end up having some erosion where people are walking down. So what we did is just show kind of conceptually, you know, what could be done in that lower one of having some steps that go down, putting in some rocks and vegetation to block people cutting down the trail, and then laying out some of that flatter limestone rock so people could walk out and be able to access the river to fish. realizing that that river's gonna go up and down, so if it goes up a little bit, there'd be another tier where people could stand on or sit. That's just something that I think when, you know, the opportunity to sit by the river and on big rocks like that, it's gonna be a real plus, not only for residents, but people that are coming here to, you know, to visit the Maritime Heritage Center. When you look across to that island, it's kind of interesting that right in the middle of the city, it's still pretty wild on that side. Nothing much has been done, so I think it really presents some opportunities. But I also think when people come and they visit the Maritime Heritage Center and they look across and maybe if they see some stepping stones like this, it'll kind of pull them out and get them across on your trail system and down to explore. Another thing that we looked at was up from the 9th Avenue Bridge on the south side, or I guess here it might be the east side. I get the way that river turns, I get my directions mixed up. But anyhow, right now it's just a lot of concrete and rubble. And I kept thinking when somebody comes to town for the first time and they go to NOAA and they're driving through town and they look down, everybody's eyes are drawn to the dam, and then you look down and see kind of all this rough rubble. They're not going to probably stop and get out and walk down there, even though there's a real, people like to look at dams. And in the city, this is the only spot where you have a rapids where you can hear the water, but it's not real inviting, you know, for people to go down there and enjoy that. So by doing something like this with, again, with kind of this flagstone, stair stepping it down where people can walk down, listen to the river, maybe sit there and just enjoy the day, would be a real asset, a real improvement to that area. Kind of clean up an area that looks a little bit rough still. Again, you know, with dam licensing and with FERC, there would be some issues that have to be dealt with there, but I think those are all things that could be overcome and really make an improvement to that little stretch. Also, down below, NOAA, there's still the old pilings from the docks, and the interest is leaving those, both from kind of a historical perspective, and they also make nice fish habitat. So we looked at putting in another small area, kind of that cantilever deck like you have at the North Shore Park, or North Park. So people can get out, look at the river, and kind of see those pilings and maybe even fish from there. Let's see where I'm at here now. So anyhow, the last part of it would be we're working on implementation component of it, where it'll provide a schedule for the projects. It'll have information on cost estimates, and also information on you know, as this is implemented, you know, where the types of permits that are needed, and to make sure that work is done, that it kind of conforms with some of the guidelines with the state and feds. And with that, that's kind of there's a lot to cover, but I just gave you a little bit of it. But as I said, I'm all ears, and any questions or comments about the plan.
Phew, that's a lot of stuff.
There's a lot more to cover. But you know, it's really, you have some really nice area to work with, and some good vegetation, you know, some areas to work with. Some of it is just getting some of the invasives and some of the rough vegetation out there and making room for maybe what's already there.
I guess one of my questions would be, where does the organization and the Thunder Bay Riverscape Plan and that committee, where does that fit in with what we've already done? As far as in the last couple of years, we've gone in twice now on either side of the river and cut out a lot of vegetation that was unsightly, and so now you can see the river. And my biggest concern that I brought up with the contractor that did it was, okay, how many years before we'll have to do this exact same thing again, rather than try and treat it in some way.
Right.
And then I guess the second half of that question is, just this past year, correct me if I'm wrong, Rich is here, but some trees were planted in some of those areas where we cut some of those out, and did that I think they were donated by Home Depot, if I'm
I
correct.
think they were more up in the park area, not on the
Okay.
bank, right?
So,
Yeah, we worked with Home Depot, and actually, when Home Depot approached us about putting those 10 trees into North Riverfront Park, we worked with Rick, and I asked, Rick, give me some varieties that we'd like to see in there. And we worked with Home Depot, and Home Depot has stepped up. They want to take care of that park and expand on that and do more there to continue this. And that's, I guess the ultimate goal out of this was to have a document so that as these projects came along, as these folks stepped forward, as an opportunity arose, that we could pull this out and say, okay, here's what we should do, as
Okay.
opposed to, so that we're ahead of the ball instead of behind the 8 ball.
and
going forward.
that's just exactly what I was getting to, is
Yeah.
that, because that happens from time to time. Anybody might step on an any given day and whoever and say, hey, I've got some great flat stone, would you like to put it somewhere? And as long
Yeah.
as everybody is on the same page and we're aware of what your document has found, and that's pretty much just what I was asking.
And
is
when
if
we
we're
talk
following
about
that.
some of that treatment of cutting down, I touched on that a little bit earlier, a lot of that vegetation, if it's the box elder they're cutting down, it just sprouts back up. So all you're doing is getting there and mucking it up, and also cutting down some of the better vegetation maybe you want to keep, but it's just going to keep coming back and coming back. So it really needs to be, handled by where you cut it down and treat the stump itself. You don't want to be spraying herbicides everywhere.
Right.
Treat the actual stump so it doesn't re-sprout. And another thing is, by the Water Tower Park, there's a big line of old box elder trees that I'm guessing my detective work says that's where your seed source is coming from for all these new box elder trees. So something we talk about in the plan is, eventually converting that area there with the big old box elder trees to something that's more desirable. So you don't have that constant seed source coming back in and undoing what you've been working to do.
Okay.
Rick, what's your level of confidence that there's some grant sources available for Riverscape type of project?
I guess I would have a high level because the focus of this plan, I think if we had a plan here and we were talking about armoring it all with cement, it'd be pretty hard to do, but what we're talking about here is doing treatments that are going to bring some of the nature back into the area, using native plants and doing some kind of low impact type treatments. So I would think that there'd be a real high chance of that. Not only with coastal management, with other programs like the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative and so forth.
I attended one of the meetings, I think it was probably your last one.
Yeah.
And there was quite a bit of enthusiasm among the people who attended the meeting, especially about being able to walk out to the little red light house in the bay. Everybody was so enthusiastic about that. At the same time, I think everybody realized there's a lot of work to be done, but they all were glad that there's going to be a plan so that when somebody comes forward, you can say, yes, you can do this or this or this, instead of just a hodgepodge of things that are as undesirable as the things that we already have there. I felt great about the meeting, and especially about your presentation. It's very nice. It's a very nice idea, all of it.
Thanks.
And I like your dog too.
Yeah.
Makes me think of my Gretchen.
Yeah.
Especially with the ears.
She was my assistant one day when I was doing inventory work. I had to bring her with me, so
I
I didn't show all the pictures with her in the picture.
I guess my other question would be, does the findings of this committee and this study, well, you did say that it was a guideline and it wasn't a regulation, but as far as what the city does in the future and what other, will we pretty much does the study or the results need any kind of action from us to make sure that we don't change that in the future? Like, if this is the plan, is it just a plan? Or I would hate to say, okay, 2.5, 3 years from now, somebody else comes in or some other group comes in and says, hey, we would really like to do this with this part of the park, and it becomes like by the dam or something, and they do something different. How do we make sure that this plan is established, that it's the plan, and at least has to be addressed that what they want to do is outside of the original
You would-
plan. If you
like
get my,
The Box Elder Coalition comes in and says, we want to plant box elder everywhere. Is that-
something like that. Do you see what I mean? Do you see where I'm kind
And
of
I
coming
think,
from?
I think the big thing is that from the very beginning, we did not want this to be a regulatory document so that I am forcing another level of red tape and bureaucracy on
I get
the
that.
property owners. But what we wanted to do is have this as a tool that we can pull out. It doesn't mean, 100 years from now, hopefully, somebody will look at this and say, and compare it to this, and it's not gonna look anything like this, because there are gonna be changes. It's gonna evolve. And I think as an opportunity presents itself, like with Home Depot, wanting to do additional improvements in the North Riverfront Park. They may have some other ideas and concepts that are not in here, but do they fit in with the tone and the nature of this? So those are the things that I think it really is a tool for us to use. We certainly have a plan that says thou shalt plant a tree here, here, and here, and that.
I am not suggesting that at all. I just want
I
like a guideline better. I just want to make sure that everything that you did and all the study and all the committee and all the meetings, and I attended the first one, all that doesn't become just something that was nice and then we don't really
Dust on the
follow.
shelf.
I think what I might suggest to you is, once the plan is done, and as you said, there were some members from the planning commission off and on, and we were there, I was there, is that this could be presented back to the planning commission and ultimately the council to adopt it as a guide, not as regulation. But now it becomes an official guide. I've seen other plans where they're just done basically by a consultant with staff, and nothing ever happens, and it's, half the people don't even, including the elected officials or even the planning commission or others who would be involved, aren't really fully aware that it's there.
Right.
This would make it not as a regulatory document, but as a guide that, and setting up principles and concepts of what the city would like to see. And yes, everything that would come in, we could look at, compare, and then within our own property, look to adhere to those, and then with others to recommend and try to get others to follow in those same concepts, even if it isn't exact. We've already seen, as we pointed out with Starlight Beach, we have a master plan, and already what's been done with the pavilion and the restrooms doesn't match the master plan. The elements are still there, they've been just kind of relocated. The same thing will happen here. They won't end up exact, but if they fit in with those concepts and principles, that's what we want, and that's the goal. So I would suggest, once it's done, perhaps in July or August, it could be brought before the planning commission and then back to council to adopt it in that fashion.
Okay. Then everybody kind of knows, everybody's a little bit more aware of them.
That's a good idea.
Thank you. Anybody
Appreciate
else?
the hard work and
Thanks.
and
It
the
was fun.
product.
I'm a community planner with my roots in natural resources, so this was a great project for me.
Well, we're glad we got you out walking Alpena a little
There
bit.
you go.
All right, thank you, Rick. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
We're on to unfinished business. This is second reading of ordinance 13-424, rezoning of Alpena Community College property.
Consistent with council policy, this is not read again. I simply need action up or down at this point.
Just for clarification of the public, it is to rezone roughly 160 acres on the east side of Woodward Avenue, north of the railroad tracks and south of Hamilton Road, from R2 one family, which has been used as a holding zoning district for that area of the college north of the tracks, to I2 industrial, which is general industrial.
Great. In light of the fact that it's my employer requesting, I've asked to abstain from a vote.
I believe it's appropriate to allow Councilman Sexton to abstain.
Someone.
We need to vote on that?
We need a motion for that.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we allow Councilman Sexton to abstain from the vote.
Second.
Nielsen,
Yes.
Nowak,
Yes.
Walagora.
Aye.
Eiler.
Yes.
You don't have
Okay.
Doesn't get a say.
And I move the approval of ordinance number 13-424.
Second.
Nowak,
Yes.
Walagora.
Aye.
Eiler.
Yes.
Nielsen.
Yes.
B, under unfinished business, is a contract for Alpena Township sewer and water rate negotiation services.
Pursuant to the last council meeting, council direction, we did be in contact with Jim Young, who was the attorney that we were recommending to work with the city during the negotiations with Alpena Township. Mr. Young did forward over a proposed agreement, and believe it or not, an attorney can write a 2-page agreement that says it all.
Are we all looking at Bill?
This was forwarded over for Bill for his review. His response that says it was okay was longer than the agreement.
I said, wow. This is.
Basically what it does is it sets it up, under our purchasing policy for professional services, we're allowed to contract up to $10,000. What this does, this agreement would be for an amount not to exceed $10,000 for professional services associated directly with the negotiations with Alpena Township. In the event that, I don't see it happening, if something happens, prolonged, additional time, monies that need to be invested, we can certainly come back to City Council and request an amendment to that. But at this time, it would be only for an amount up to and not to exceed $10,000. And Bill has reviewed it, and Greg and I did make a few changes to this as we went through there, and I think it.
My understanding when we've had our meetings with Jim before that is he has not worked with Alpena Township in the past, so there would be no conflict of interest.
No, he is familiar professionally with Jim Flora, is not, gone head to head with him in court nor worked with him, so, yeah, there is no conflict of interest with Jim. Request authorization for the city staff to enter into that agreement.
So moved.
Second?
Yeah, I guess the only discussion that I would have is that, once again, that basically the issue with it was that it's not exactly our attorney's forte, which is, for anyone that missed our last meeting, was that Mr. Young has a lot more experience in this, and I think if you feel that his contract cost and agreement is well worth what he'll be able to offer us to work with the township's attorney, I think it's good money well spent. So, in favor of that. No other discussion, we'll vote.
Walagora.
Aye.
Eiler.
Yes.
Nielsen.
Yes.
Nowak.
Yes.
Sexton.
Yes. Move we adjourn to closed session.
Second?
And I need to call the roll. Eiler.
Yes.
Nielsen.
Yes.
Nowak.
Yes.
Sexton.
Yes.
Walagora.
Aye.
Thank you.
You are watching All About Alpena.